Wow, you've made it this far. Thank you for joining us and sticking with us. Let's just a couple things left here. Now, in this section, we're kind of done with all the core elements, but we're going to talk about one more chart type and how you can create it automatically. And then we're also going to talk about a few other cool features that didn't fit into any other category and some of the frequently asked questions before we wrap up the training. So on my screen, you can see I'm on the KPIs tab again, and let's just talk about a few things. You'll see that I've put all kinds of crazy targets and limits in this particular set of KPIs. But it's very common for us when we're deploying this software at a particular customer site, or it's common to hear from our customers that say, hey, I know what data I want to make available, but I don't actually know yet what all the targets or limits should be. Is there any way to just make this all nice and colorful for me to show off to my bosses and make sure that it makes sense and then edit it after that? And the answer is absolutely yes. We put in a really cool feature called the Target Limit Generator. It's right over here on the side. So when you're on a set of KPIs, you have these two options. And I'll talk about this bottom one first, the Target Limit Generator. Now, if I click that, you can see here I get this little dialog that allows me to help determine what might make a good set of targets and limits and min and max on this. It's going to crawl my data sources. So I might have 20 different data sources represented just on this set of KPIs, but what I'm really just going to do is answer a few questions and let it crawl the data. And I probably won't do this because I don't want to replace all the targets and limits I have here. But really, in this case, by default, it says go back 30 days from now, star is now, and figure out what is the average and make that the target, and then do a statistical calculation of 1, 1.5, and 2 sigma in each direction, determine the lows or highs. Now, I might not want all these. I might just want a low and a high. So I can go through here and unclick the double and triple of each side. I may or may not want a target. I may or may not want a min or a max in here. Choose what I want and choose the time range and then say go. And it's going to go crawl all that data. Depending on the density or frequency of your data, it might take a little bit of time. Then it's going to populate all those limits for you. And when you click save, you're going to have limits across all of your KPIs, even if you had 1,000 of them in here. So a very fast way to immediately put some color and to populate everything, and then you can go back and adjust it to your own liking or add in data sources where it makes sense or any of those other pieces. A very powerful, cool tool, especially if you're just getting started or if you're building a demo site or you're building a small proof of concept and just want to see how it works. So I'm going to close that. That's one of those interesting things. The next was what I said at the intro of this section, which is we're going to look at another chart type, and that's trends. Then let me open up all 34 of the trends that have been created in here, and let's go over to the user experience and look at the chart type called trends. Now, if you're familiar at all with Visual KPI, you'll notice, let's pull up one of these, you'll notice that you can make trends, or trends are already made for any kind of data that's flowing in the system. Any KPI has an actual that can be trended, or maybe its targets and limits are trended, or moving or static, but still available on a timeline and on a line chart like this. So that's one thing, but we also have this concept called manage trends, and that appears under the charts tab, and that's when the administrator, or you, wants to make a trend of specific information, maybe 1 or maybe 10 or 20 or 100 things on there. Hopefully not 100. That would be pretty ugly in most cases. But you want to put a lot of information and you want to make it a first-class object in the system, meaning you want all your users to see it. It needs a location in the hierarchy or attributes for a dynamic hierarchy or all those other things that any other chart type would have. Now, an end user can already make these in an ad hoc way, but they're making them and they can add them to their dashboard, but there's no real way to make them first-class objects. So you do that under the Charts tab over here. And just like our other charts, you can determine pen by pen where you want to get it. Here's pen 1. Do I want to get it from an interface? Is there a time offset? What color do I want? And what do I want to call it? And what's its axis? Right? And then and what pen type? And then I can move on to pen 2, right? That's a manual way of making that. And a long time ago, somebody said, hey, why can't I make these out of KPIs that already exist in the designer? And so sure enough, we added that feature. And this plays very well with what we described earlier in the training about which things you want to make. So I'm not going to select them all. I'm going to unselect everything. I'm going to go over here and say, let's put our training KPI in there. Let's put this gross megawatts KPI. Let's put maybe fuel cost and phase in there. And that's it. Let's put those 4 pens on a trend, okay? Now I'm on the KPIs tab. I'm not on the trends tab. So again, over here we have this create trend function. And when I choose that, it's going to go put a new trend right down here at the bottom called group trend. And I'm going to call this one training trend. Okay. And I'm going to make it a member of the home group. And save that. Now it's going to be an object, but it's going to have some basic things. So let's go right back over here to charts. When I go down to trends, once the cash cycle runs, I'm going to have a training trend on there. Now let's go talk about some of the things that I can do. That was automatically created, but it's missing a few things. They're optional, but they're stuff that I can do. So I can give it a y-axis, like y-axis test here, and I could give it, and then I can go over to each pen and choose which color I want. In this case, you can see it put my training KPI, and it'll choose some default colors if I don't choose any. And let's make the training one a step trend, just to be unique. Or let's make it even crazier. Let's just go for a symbol trend on that one. Then it's defined my second pen over here. And let's leave all that alone and go past all these pens, all my pen types down to pen 20. And then I have all my custom attributes. All right. And then in the user experience, I could say, give it a specific time frame, give it a specific contact. Again, all these are optional. You don't have to have them populated, even if there's a default in there. And I could say, let's make this particular trend multi-scale, because I know those KPIs are not on the same scale. Okay, and let's make the y-axis, I'll just leave it alone for now. Okay, scroll over here. Anything else I want? Do I want it to give it a latitude and longitude? Do I want to show calculations in the cursor, min and max, things like that? All right, let's just save it. And has my training trend come in? It's already over here. Let's give it a little refresh just to make sure. There's my training trend. Let's pull that up. It's way too dense because it's got a 1 week time range, and some of that data is very dense. So let's find my, I think it's over here, my start and end time. Let's say I only want it to be 1 hour. Here's where the power of Excel comes in. I can just go paste that. Now, let's say the end time is now, and it's an hour old. Let's save that little thing, and eventually it's going to refresh at some point once the cash cycle hits, and you're going to see this guy be a 1 hour trend. There it is. Now it's a 1 hour trend. One of those pens is just a symbol trend. I could make step trends, whatever you want. So very, very cool way to quickly make a trend out of multiple KPIs as an administrator, not as an end user in the browser. Last feature for this section under our advanced settings is something we call Navbar links, which is a new feature and one requested by a few of our customers. It's a way to really customize the user experience. Let's say you have something really powerful over here, some dashboard you don't want maybe here on the bookmark bar, which is very easy to create, and your end users can create this, but as an administrator, maybe you want to force a link over here. And let's say you have something like safety regulations. If you go over here to the advanced section and you go to Navbar links, let's go just to the designer here. Let's make a new one. Let's give it something called safety warning. It might be too long. Let's just call it safety. Let's give the description, safety warnings. And let's find some interesting URL to go to. Let's just go to Transpara just to make it easy. So let's say at an intranet site with all kinds of safety messages that you need your users to see all the time, or you need them always to have a link on it. And all I'm going to do is save this. It's going to make it its own unique ID. This one doesn't have a group or anything. This is a site-wide feature. If I go back over here and I refresh, you're going to see I have a built-in link here, and I can have as many of those as I want. So if I wanted to make specific messages for my users, I can do so, and that will link them right over to wherever you've linked it. Okay, just another advanced feature, and you've pretty much made it to the end. We'll just have one more last section to wrap up the training. So thanks for sticking with us. Onward to the last piece.